Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The sun was setting over the golden fields, painting the village in a warm, soft light. In a small stone house by the roadside, Alina, a young black woman with bright eyes and a shy smile, waited. She had been promised for several months to the son of an influential merchant, an arranged marriage meant to seal alliances between families. But that evening, everything changed. When she appeared in the manor's great hall, dressed in her midnight blue silk gown, whispers erupted. The guests, frozen with indignation, saw in her only a skin color they deemed unworthy of their family. Her fiancé averted his gaze, and her father, red with anger and embarrassment, coldly announced, "We cannot accept this marriage. Go back home, Alina." Alina's heart sank. Tears threatened to spill, but she straightened her back, proud despite the humiliating rejection. As she left the mansion, head held high but shoulders heavy with pain, her steps unknowingly led her toward a different destiny. In the neighboring valley, a wealthy and respected farmer, known for his kindness and perspicacity, watched the scene from the heights of his land. Where others saw only color, he saw light, dignity, and courage. He knew at once that this young woman possessed a rare strength, a pure heart capable of defying prejudice and transforming her world. And that evening, without knowing it yet, Alina's path and that of the farmer would cross, marking the beginning of a story that no one in the village could have imagined. The wind blew gently across the golden hills. Alina wandered among the fields, still reeling from the manor's cruel rejection. Her hesitant steps led her near a vast agricultural estate, where the scent of flowers and damp earth contrasted sharply with the bitterness of her evening. Suddenly, the sound of wheels on gravel made her jump. A cart was approaching, pulled by two sturdy horses. At the wheel, a man with an imposing presence, but a warm smile, watched her curiously. His clothes were simple yet refined, a wealthy farmer who had managed to combine prosperity and elegance without ostentation. "Are you well, miss?" he asked in a soft but firm voice. Alina, surprised, shook her head. I'm lost." The man signaled the horses to stop and got down from the cart. His eyes, dark and penetrating, seemed to read his soul. "You don't look like just an ordinary traveler. My name is Adrian." "And yours?" She hesitated for a moment, then murmured, "Alina." Adrian smiled, but not condescendingly. There was a silent recognition in his eyes. He saw in her what no one else had noticed. A quiet strength, a natural dignity that emanated from every gesture, every glance. "You seem to have been through a difficult time, Alina. Perhaps I can offer you some respite and a place to rest?" She lowered her eyes, embarrassed but relieved. I don't know if I can accept." Adrian took a step towards her, respectful but determined. "This is not a favor, but an encounter. You deserve to be seen for who you truly are, and not for what others decide to impose on you." For the first time in hours, Alina felt a faint smile appear on her lips. Perhaps today, her life was taking an unexpected turn. And without her knowing it yet, this encounter would change not only her destiny, but that of the entire village. The afternoon sun bathed Adrian's estate in a soft light. Alina still followed the farmer, a mixture of mistrust and curiosity in her eyes. The cart had stopped in front of a large stone house, surrounded by fertile fields and blossoming orchards. "You can stay here as long as you like," said Adrian, inviting him in. "But I'm warning you, here, no one will judge you for your color, or for your past." Alina felt a thrill of gratitude mixed with a certain mistrust. She had been rejected so many times for who she was, that it was difficult for her to believe that one could see beyond appearances. Upon entering the house, she noticed the elegant simplicity of the place, solid wooden furniture, handmade tapestries, and a library filled with antique books. Adrian invited her to sit by the large window overlooking the fields. "Tell me, Alina," he asked gently, "what are you passionate about in life?" She hesitated, then replied, "I like helping others, and I like understanding things. Reading, learning, finding solutions. I suppose I've always wanted to be useful. Adrian smiled, impressed. You know, many people have talents, but few have the courage to use them despite adversity. You are one of them. Alina felt her cheeks flush. It was the first time in a long time that someone had recognized her worth without ulterior motives. I'll make you a deal, said Adrian, leaning on the table. If you agree to stay here for a few days, I'll show you what my land can teach you. You might discover unsuspected skills, and perhaps even change your destiny. A mixture of astonishment and nervousness washed over Alina. Was it a simple gesture of kindness, or the beginning of a real opportunity? Very well. I'll try, she murmured, in a low but determined voice. Adrian nodded with a knowing smile. He knew he had just discovered an exceptional person, a woman whose courage and inner light would soon transform his life and the lives of those around them. Fate had just placed Alina at the heart of a world where her worth would never again be measured by the color of her skin, but by the greatness of her heart. The next morning, Alina got up before dawn. The cool breeze on her cheeks and the smell of damp earth seemed to erase the previous day's hurts. Adrian was already waiting for her in the yard, a basket of seeds in his hand and an encouraging smile. Today you will discover what work and patience mean, he said. But don't worry, I will never leave you to face difficulties alone. Alina nodded, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She had always been used to failure and rejection, but here, there seemed to be a space to learn, to grow. The hours passed quickly. Adrian showed her how to sow seeds carefully, how to water the seedlings without damaging them, how to observe the soil to understand its needs. Alina listened attentively, asked questions, and above all, learned quickly. Every gesture, every instruction was a lesson, and she felt stronger with each passing moment. You have a natural talent for this, said Adrian, watching her plant seeds with precision. Few people see the details that you notice. Alina blushed, but a feeling of pride washed over her. For the first time, someone saw in her not a skin color, but an ability, an intelligence, an inner strength. As the days went by, their bond grew stronger. Adrian was no longer just a rich and generous farmer, he was becoming a mentor, a guide, but also a friend. Alina, for her part, regained her self-confidence, learning to believe in her own worth. But the village was never far away. Rumors from the manor had traveled fast, and some inhabitants now watched with skepticism and jealousy the young woman who shone alongside the farmer. Adrian, aware of the glances and whispers, placed a comforting hand on Alina's shoulder. It doesn't matter what others think. What matters is what you know about yourself and what you are capable of achieving. Alina smiled, a genuine and confident smile, ready to face not only the challenges of the earth, but also those of the heart and of life. The path to a better destiny had just begun. The sun was high in the sky, but the atmosphere in the village was heavy with whispers. The inhabitants, still shocked by Alina's rejection at the manor, had begun to spread stories about the young woman who was now working with the wealthy farmer Adrian. Did you see? Said one of the old women, her voice honeyed but full of judgment. She dares to move in with Adrian, as if she were better than all of us. With everything she's been through, she deserves better than your stares, replied Adrian, passing by them with Alina. He had sensed the murmurs, but his tone was firm, without hatred. Despite Adrian's protection, Alina felt the weight of judgment. She knew her skin color would continue to be a target for those who didn't accept change. But she had learned to stand up to adversity. That day, while she was working in the fields, a group of young men from the village approached, laughing and whispering. One of them stepped forward, his face hard. So, you're the girl everyone rejected? It looks like the farmer took you under his wing. Alina sat up, her fists slightly clenched. Yes, it's me. And I'm not here for your judgments, but to work and learn. Adrian arrived at her side, his piercing gaze stopping the provocateurs in their tracks. She's here because she has courage, strength, and heart. If you want to stay in this village, you'll learn to respect that. Otherwise, I advise you to stay away from her fields. The young men, surprised by Alina's self-assurance and Adrian's authority, stepped back, but the tension was palpable. The village had begun to divide. Some were impressed by the young woman's strength, others jealous and envious of her connection to the farmer. This nascent conflict was merely a foretaste of the challenges to come. But Alina felt ready. Every hostile glance strengthened her resolve, every unjust word cemented her courage. With Adrian by her side, she knew she could transform not only her own destiny, but also that of those who had presumed to judge her. And as the sun disappeared behind the hills, Alina felt a new conviction deep within her: rejection was only a beginning, not an end. The days passed, and Alina gradually got used to life on Adrian's estate. Every morning, she walked diligently through the fields, learning not only the work of the land, but also the patience and strategy needed to make the crops thrive. One morning, while harvesting vegetables with Adrian, an elderly neighbor, Mrs. Lenore, approached timidly. She had long murmured criticisms in the village, but today, her face betrayed genuine curiosity. I wanted to see you work," she said hesitantly. "They say you're brave, and that you know more about the world than many of us." Alina smiled warmly at him. "Everyone can learn, madam. You just have to want to try and persevere." Ms. Lenore seemed touched by this response. She watched Alina carefully plant the seedlings, and a slight smile appeared on her lips. "You are much more than the rumors say," she murmured. Soon, other villagers began to notice Alina's skills and kindness. Children came to help her in the fields, learning from her to love nature and respect hard work. Some young adults, impressed by her determination and intelligence, even began to ask her for advice on improving their own crops. Seeing all this, Adrian felt immense pride. He knew that his decision to welcome Alina would transform not only his life, but also that of the village. "You see," he said one evening, as the setting sun illuminated the golden fields behind them, "you are not only changing your destiny. You are showing others that a person's worth is not measured by the color of their skin." Alina lowered her eyes, moved. "I never thought I could inspire someone, me, who was rejected and humiliated." Adrian placed a comforting hand on hers. "Sometimes, the wounds we suffer become our greatest strengths. And you have that strength within you." That night, Alina went to bed with a new feeling. She had found a place where she was respected, admired, and above all, seen for who she truly was. But even though part of the village was beginning to accept her presence, other whispers and jealousies had taken root, promising challenges to come. Alina knew her path would never be easy. But now, she was no longer alone. And for the first time in a long time, she could imagine a future filled with dignity, respect, and perhaps even love. The peaceful days on Adrian's estate were soon disturbed by more insistent whispers and hostile glances. Some villagers, jealous of the attention and respect Alina received, began to spread malicious rumors. One morning, while Alina was working milking the cows, a group of young men from the village approached, more aggressive than ever. "So, you really think you can show us how to live, you, the rejected girl?" one of them said with a mocking smile. Alina straightened up, calm but firm. "I'm not showing anything to anyone. I'm simply doing my job. If you want to learn, I can help you. If you want to criticize, you're wasting your time." But their contempt didn't stop. They began to overturn buckets of milk and trample plants, provoking Alina's anger. She felt a surge of anger, but before she could react, Adrian arrived, imposing an immediate silence by his mere presence. "Stop that immediately," he said in an icy voice. "You have no respect for the work, the courage, or the person in front of you. If you don't want to be banished from the village, I advise you to stay away from this land." The men, intimidated by Adrian's determination and Alina's dignity, stepped back, but an unease remained in the air. Adrian turned to Alina. "This will not be the last trial. But remember, their hatred can do nothing against the truth of your heart and your actions." Alina took a deep breath, feeling a new strength growing within her. Every insult, every jealous gesture, reinforced her resolve. She now knew that her worth didn't depend on what others thought, but on what she knew to be right and true. "I won't let them destroy me," she murmured. "Not after everything I've been through." Adrian placed a hand on his shoulder. And you will never be alone. Together, we will face anything this village or the world can throw at you. That day, Alina understood that the path to respect and recognition would never be easy. But with Adrian by her side and her own inner strength, she was ready to face any challenge, to transform every obstacle into proof of her resilience and greatness. The following weeks brought a gradual change to the village. The inhabitants began to see Alina not as a stranger or a target of ridicule, but as a capable, courageous, and kind person. The children, especially, followed her everywhere in the fields, fascinated by her explanations and her energy. One morning, Alina and Adrian were working side by side repairing an old barn damaged by winter. Several villagers passed by and stopped, some to watch, others to offer their help. Mrs. Lenore, now convinced by the young woman's sincerity and strength, took the initiative to rally the others. "Come and help," she said, "for once, let's follow her advice. She knows what she's doing." Quickly, what could have been a simple task became a true community activity. Alina guided, advised, and encouraged everyone with gentleness and firmness. Laughter began to replace whispers, and even those who had been hostile began to quietly acknowledge the young woman's worth. Adrian watched the scene with admiration. He knew that it wasn't just the physical work that had changed the village's perception, but the way Alina treated each person with respect and dignity, never humiliating or belittling anyone. "You have that rare gift," he said, approaching her and placing a hand on her shoulder. "The gift of transforming hearts." Alina blushed slightly, moved by his words. "I only do what I believe is right. But I'm glad to see that people are starting to understand." However, this newfound positive momentum also attracted the attention of those who had never accepted her presence. Some former suitors and jealous residents once again whispered in the shadows, ready to sow discord. But Alina, strengthened by her experience and with Adrian's support, refused to be intimidated. "The whispers don't matter," she murmured, her gaze determined. "What matters is what we do and how we choose to act." And that day, the village began to change, little by little. Hostile stares turned to curiosity, then to respect, and Alina felt that her fight to be recognized for who she truly was only just beginning. The road ahead would be long, but she knew that with Adrian by her side and her own inner strength, nothing could stop her rise. A peaceful morning on the estate was suddenly disturbed by a distant rumble. Dark clouds were gathering on the horizon, and the wind picked up, carrying with it ominous whispers. But it wasn't the weather that alarmed Alina and Adrian, it was unexpected news from the village. A messenger arrived at a gallop, his face pale. "Mr. Adrian. The barn to the north, it's caught fire. And several residents say it wasn't an accident." Adrian felt his heart clench. He glanced at Alina, who, despite the fear in her eyes, stood up with determination. "We must go and see immediately. And we will help those who need it." Upon arriving at the scene, the place was chaotic. The barn was smoking, the villagers were trying to extinguish the flames with whatever they could find, but the fire was spreading. Some residents, still reluctant to accept Alina, looked at her with a mixture of concern and skepticism. "Alina," said Adrian, "stay close to me and help those who are in danger." Without hesitation, she rushed into action. She guided the villagers, ordered the horses to be moved away, and found a way to channel water from the wells to contain the fire. Her courage and quick thinking impressed even the most skeptical. "Look at her," exclaimed an elderly villager. "She acts as if she was born to rule." Adrian, observing her efficiency and bravery, felt immense pride. Alina was not just a rejected young woman of the past, she had become a leader, respected for her courage and intelligence. After several hours of effort, the fire was brought under control. The barn had sustained damage, but no lives had been lost. The villagers, exhausted but grateful, turned to Alina and Adrian, their faces reflecting admiration and gratitude. "You see?" Adrian whispered to Alina. "Even in the face of adversity, your strength and your heart can transform fear into respect." Alina, breathless but smiling, understood that this ordeal had strengthened her place in the village. Those who doubted her now had to recognize not only her skills, but also her courage and determination. And as the sun sank behind the hills, illuminating the smoke still rising from the barn, Alina knew she was ready to face any storm, for she was no longer alone, and her destiny had just taken on a new dimension. The days following the barn fire were filled with gratitude and cooperation. The villagers, impressed by Alina's courage and intelligence, began to ask her for advice not only on agricultural work, but also on solving problems in their homes and daily lives. One morning, while she was explaining how to organize the irrigation of the fields to several young men, Adrian approached. "Look at them," he said with a smile. "They listen to you and respect you. And you richly deserve it." Alina, moved, lowered her eyes. "I never imagined that I could be accepted, that I could have a place here." "You were never just accepted," Adrian corrected. "You inspired. You transformed the way others saw you, and even themselves." The respect she gained gradually changed the dynamics of the village. Children followed her as a role model, adults were less hesitant to consult her, and even some former detractors, impressed by her tenacity and wisdom, began to recognize her worth. One evening, as the sun was setting and the fields were taking on a golden hue, Adrian invited Alina to walk with him in the orchards. "Do you see this village now?" he said. "It no longer sees you as a stranger. It sees you for what you are, a strong, intelligent, and dignified woman." Alina smiled, moved and grateful. "And all this thanks to you," she murmured. "Without your support." Adrian placed a soft but firm hand on hers. "No, Alina. You're the one who changed everything. I only believed in you. And now I know that nothing and no one can stop your rise." The gentle evening breeze caressed their faces, and Alina felt for the first time that her life was truly taking a turn. She was no longer the rejected fiancée, nor the target of prejudice. She was Alina, a woman recognized for her courage, her determination, and the light she brought to those around her. But deep down, she knew her journey wasn't over yet. Each victory paved the way for the challenges ahead. And as night fell on the estate, she was ready to face the future with confidence, knowing she would never be alone again. The entire village was preparing for the Harvest Festival, an annual event celebrating abundance and community work. But this year, the atmosphere was different. The looks that had once turned toward Alina with disdain or skepticism were now filled with admiration and respect. Alina, dressed in a simple yet elegant dress, walked beside Adrian. Her steps were confident, her smile radiant. She had transformed not only his own life, but that of the entire village. Children ran around her, laughing and calling her name, while the adults exchanged approving murmurs. "Look how she's changed our village," a neighbor whispered to her friend. "She has a heart and a strength that no one could have imagined." Adrian gently took her hand and led her to the center of the square, where a bonfire was crackling. He raised his voice. "Today, we celebrate not only the harvest, but also the courage, determination, and light of an exceptional person. Alina." Applause erupted, echoing throughout the valley. Alina felt her eyes fill with tears of joy and emotion. For the first time, she was fully recognized for who she was, a strong, capable, and respectable woman. She stepped forward, her heart pounding, and began to speak. "Thank you all. I am not here by chance, nor through merit alone. Every day, I have learned thanks to Adrian and thanks to you. Today, I am happy to be able to share not only my knowledge, but also my heart with each of you." The entire village remained silent for a moment, absorbed by the power of her words, before the ovation resumed, even louder. Even those who had once rejected her approached timidly, offering their respect and sometimes their sincere admiration. Adrian, holding her close, murmured, "You've won everything, Alina. Your dignity, your respect, and even your heart." Alina smiled, moved but serene. She knew the road had been difficult, but each trial had made her stronger. She had transformed rejection into strength, jealousy into admiration, and hostility into respect. That night, under the starry sky, the entire village celebrated not only the harvest, but also the triumph of a young woman who had dared to believe in herself despite everything. Alina was no longer the outcast. She was a symbol of courage, hope, and light for everyone. And as Adrian looked at her with pride and admiration, Alina knew that she had found her place, her destiny, and perhaps even a sincere and lasting love, forged in hardship and mutual respect.